Our fall worship series is Kintsukuroi, the Japanese art of fixing broken pottery with lacquer resin sprinkled with powdered gold. Throughout the series, we are asking you, as members of our community, to write about a time or incident when you were broken and repaired. We're looking for about 500 to 1,000 words of honest witness. Here are some of the questions you might consider when writing. When were you broken and what repaired you? Where was God in this? Are there parts of you more beautiful for having been broken? How can we be the gold for others? Who filled the cracks in your life with gold? We are not looking for meaning in the evil that happens to us or the evil that we do. As a community, we don't believe that God causes suffering and evil, but we do believe that with God's help, we can be repaired, and the broken places are where we might become beautiful and strong.
17 years old, left home, went to college, developed an eating disorder. Yep, that's no fun. I remember the girl in my residence hall that would only eat lettuce. She was obviously sick. Everyone could see how broken she was. I felt it too, broken and out of control. I became a binge eater. No one noticed. Everyone gains the freshman 15. At the height of my disorder, I had gained much more. This is different than social pressure and media's expectations about size. Not that I haven't been influenced by those sectors, of course. This is about being in a crumbling body and losing the ability to cope with wounds I had carefully piecemeal mended as needed. My brokenness was not immediate. It crept diligently for years and quickened its pace with the help of a stressful life transition. I cried every day for months. The cracks became too wide and numerous to hold together anymore. Not like the day I tipped my mom's cabinet full of family heirloom china. I felt terrible about being responsible for breaking all of those priceless pieces. I immediately saw the impact of the damage and the size of the event. I spent hours, days, and weeks in our attic as a child, trying to find the right place for all the scattered pieces. I fixed a few. I did what I could and then walked away. She was content knowing I cared enough to try. The impetus of my original crack I knew, the repair I knew not. Food made me feel good, then it didn't. That is binge eating. It's terrible. You have to eat, don't you? Right. No, wrong. I got called fat and criticized for eating. Broke some more. Please stop falling apart. I'm thankful for the friends that didn't judge me. I'm thankful for those who pursued me even though I overwhelmed them with my tears. I'm thankful for my parents who prayed for me and believed I would make it. I'm thankful for God's grace. I'm thankful for the girl who looked sick. She helped me see myself. I'm thankful for the people who cheered me on and have literally walked beside me for miles and miles. I'm thankful for the art of cooking. I'm thankful for sharing meals rather than eating and hiding. I'm thankful for yoga practice and for being strong. I'm thankful for community. I'm thankful creation has a purpose for me. I'm thankful for the hours, days, and weeks that people who love me have spent repairing me with their generous lacquer. I'm in recovery. The healing has crept steadily as the preceding breaking did. I manage very well most of the time until down goes the package of Oreos, which puts painful strain on my repaired cracks. Mostly they stay intact though. People rarely believe my broken story. They only see me now, doing well, although I'm very grateful to be doing well. So to that end, I hope that when you see me, you see the flickers of beautiful gold left behind by the people who saved me. It's the best I can do. Maybe you'll take some for yourself. spent the day looking at houses, talking about wallpaper and paint possibilities. We'd been through a rough time dealing with Matt's job crisis and the consequences of my multiple sclerosis diagnosis, but it was going to be okay now. We were coming home. The next day I tried to kill myself. Matt and David were in Greensboro Christmas shopping. I was at home writing a suicide note. Most people are content to leave their suicide note on the kitchen counter, but not me. Oh no, I had to fax my suicide note to the mayor and the city manager. Histrionic personality, maybe just a tad. Then I took a handful of sleeping pills. When Matt and David got home, the police were there. At the emergency room, they didn't have to pump my stomach because I was throwing up on my own. After I was a little more stable, I was ushered out to the waiting sheriff's van. The deputy opened the tiny back compartment, which was completely empty. At that time, I was very claustrophobic. I looked at Matt with panic in my eyes. I don't know what he said or did. I just know that I didn't have to get in that hellhole. Thank you, Matt. Then the very kind deputy put the handcuffs on me. Standard procedure. But she let me ride in the front seat. I got to the other hospital and I started throwing up again. I remember lying on the floor with a large African-American man kneeling beside me. He helped me to my room, gave me a shot of Phenergan to help with the nausea, and said, "I'm Lawrence. I'm going to be your nurse. You're going to be okay, and I'm right here. Now see if you can get some sleep, okay?" The next morning, Lawrence was there again. "You know, yours is not typical case. I was special. I did some research on that medicine you've been taking for the MS. Did you know it can cause suicidal ideation?" No, nobody told me that part. I was still adjusting to giving myself a shot every other day, although it had been over a year. In a few minutes, I heard the loudspeaker, phone call for Juanita. It was my good friend Peggy Haynes. "How are you?" she asked. "I'm fine," I replied. And she said, "Juanita, you're in a freaking psychiatric ward. Now, how are you?" Actually, I know now that I was fine, F-I-N-E. Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. I worked really hard that day getting well, appearing well, acting well. I went to group, I participated, I smiled, I was getting well, and I was going home. The next morning, the loudspeaker called us to breakfast. We all lined up in the tiny room where our breakfast trays of eggs and sausage sat on a stacked metal cart, getting cold. Nurse Ratchet sat at a small desk. "Step forward when I call your name," she ordered. And we all did. We all did everything Nurse Ratchet told us to do. Her voice echoed in the empty room as she asked each of us individually, "Have you had a bowel movement in the last 24 hours? By the next day, I was really ready to go home. I just needed to admit my mistakes, get on with my life. I tried to flag down the psychiatrist, but he waved me off as if I were an annoying gnat. But I was persistent. When I finally got his attention, I said, "I'd like to speak with you privately before you leave." Hours later, I was granted permission to see the great and powerful wizard. In the inner sanctum of his office, he thundered at me, "Well, what is it?" Timidly, I said in my sweetest, non-threatening Dorothy voice, "You know me. You know I don't belong here. I want to go home." He looked at me with flashing eyes, cold as steel. "I don't know you from Adam. I think you do belong here, and you are not going home." He stood up and walked deliberately to the door. He yanked the door open for me to leave and dismissed me with an icy nod. I walked back to my room in stunned silence. In the darkness, I crawled up on my bed and sat cross-legged on top of the covers. The wizard's voice echoed over and over and over and over again in my head. I don't know you from Adam. You do belong here. You are not going home. It was almost as if I could hear the breaking apart of my identity. I was nobody. I was nothing. And the tears began to flow. Silently, as if the lifeless pile of sawdust there in bed didn't even deserve to make a sound. I sat there for a long time, experiencing the brokenness of my very soul. My life as I had known it was over. And then there was a soft knock at my door. The lights in the hall created a silhouette of a small man at my door. It was my new friend Donald, there with PTSD from the horrors he had experienced in Vietnam. He didn't enter, but he stood at my partially open door. Although I had only known him a couple of days, I knew he had a huge heart. I also knew that he probably felt like a nobody his entire life. "You okay?" he asked softly. I couldn't speak, but he just stood there, waiting patiently. I finally took a halting breath and realized that I had been tossed a lifeline with those two powerful little words, "You okay?" "No," I replied honestly, "no, I'm not." And after another deep breath, "But I will be." The cracks were beginning to be repaired.